We are 334 days away from the midterms, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, he cannot get off the hot seat under even more pressure tonight. We've got new developments about the military's first attack on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean that some lawmakers say may be a war crime. The New York Times is reporting Hegseth approved contingency plans for what to do if an initial strike left survivors. According to multiple U.S. officials, quote, the military would attempt to rescue survivors who appeared to be helpless, shipwrecked, and out of what the administration considered a fight. But it would try again to kill them if it took what the United States deemed to be a hostile action, like communicating with suspected cartel members. That is what the official said. After the smoke cleared from a first strike on September, there were 2 survivors, and one of them did radio for help. Admiral Frank M. Bradley, who commanded the operation, ordered a follow-up strike, and both of those individuals were killed. Tomorrow, that admiral will brief lawmakers on Capitol Hill in closed-door sessions. And the Wall Street Journal is reporting that he will tell them that the survivors were seen aboard the vessel alongside packages of illegal narcotics. Quote, Admiral Bradley plans to say he and his legal advisor concluded the 2 survivors were attempting to continue their drug run, making them, the already damaged vessel, legitimate targets for another attack. That is according to 2 defense officials. With that, let's bring in our nightcap. Philip Bump is here, MS Now columnist and contributor, Molly Jong-Fast, Vanity Fair special correspondent and host of the Fast Politics podcast, and Anthony Fisher, MS Now columnist and senior editor. What is your reaction to this reporting?
Well, I mean, my reaction is that it's just appalling that Pete Hegseth, who kind of came in and was screaming about, fat people in the military and bringing back like the honor and
no beards too. Watch out.
Even special forces had got to get shaky.
You're out of luck.
That. But the idea that we're now defining down military actions that were once, the province of, law enforcement, going after drug smugglers, the U.S. military was used for that, but they weren't at war. They weren't, these weren't enemy combatants. And now we've defined down war to the point that people who are clinging to life, who radio for help, we're now defining that as they're continuing their war mission. They're continuing to bring their poison to the shores of the United States. And to me, that's appalling. It's something that a lot of military veterans, people who are free to speak now, they're no longer in the military, have described as war crimes. And I really hope this isn't the end of this. I really hope that lawmakers do hold this admiral to some account when he speaks tomorrow.
I see you taking notes. You must have something to say. I assume it's not your grocery list.
No, look, I think the problem for Hegseth is his story keeps changing. Right. He said none of, we're seeing more details, different stories, wasn't in the room, was in the room. Now they are all committed to bringing up this admiral. I think this is a problem for him, and we're seeing both sides. I mean, the other thing is Trump's political fortunes are not what they were 6 months ago, right? And so people are getting a little braver on the Republican side, and that's not an accident, right? I think we even see more pushback from the Supreme Court, which is a sort of politicized, very political court right now. So I'd be very surprised if there wasn't more, they're saying there's going to be bipartisan hearings. There certainly is going to be a big closed-door hearing tomorrow. And I think there's going to be more. And I think Hegseth is really in trouble.
Do you share the same concern that some lawmakers and service members have that Admiral Bradley could be scapegoated here? I
mean, it certainly looks like they're trying to say, everyone is like, well, this was the guy who was really in charge. I mean, that does feel like they're trying to do it. I mean, the good news with Trump world is always this. They are largely not so good at what they do. And thank God for that. But that doesn't mean they won't get away with stuff. And so we'll see what happens. But I think I certainly see definitely there's a lot of pushback on the Republican side, which is certainly a new factor.
A couple of things. I think, first of all, we should just remember there's no reason to grant Pete Hegseth the benefit of the doubt on any of this. I mean, this is the same day that we had reporting that, of course, when he had the leaked Signal chat earlier this year, that it potentially put service members at risk, something that he had denied. And, he's not a credible figure, and so we should always apply an asterisk to things that he is saying. I do think, though,
on the Signal gate, the administration continues to back him.
Yes, well, I mean, that's
For
sort of
now.
a broader question.
For now,
exactly.
yeah.
Right.
They said he was fully exonerated.
Right, yes, of course. Well, this is what they're going to say, to their handpicked.
But who? Somebody in the group chat?
Jeff Goldberg. I do think, though, that it's important to remember that the idea here that Anthony was getting at, the idea here that we're talking about war is ludicrous. Now, consider, this is one of the first strikes. Right? So it is not the case that these guys, whoever they were, even if they were carrying drugs to some island in the Caribbean, they were not cognizant of the fact that there was hovering some sort of, aircraft that was going to blow them out of the water. They were not enemy combatants in a war because no war existed. Right. This is a contrivance that is being applied after the fact.
So what you're saying is at best they're criminals, but that's not a war.
Exactly. And so if they then get blown up out of the blue, having no idea what's going on, they're hanging onto this boat and they're like, hey, someone come help us. We don't know what the hell happened. Maybe they thought the boat blew. Like, who knows, right? And they're radiating for help. The idea that the administration wants us to have is that these people were continuing to do their war acts. And it is just idiotic to say that that is what's happening in that situation, given particularly that this was one of the first times this had occurred.
Okay. It's also worth adding that the president pardoned the former president of Honduras, who flooded this country with illegal drugs.
And we also still don't know that there are drugs on those boats.
That's true.
Right? Because there's a fisherman's family that's trying to sue right now.
Yes, and normally in these situations, they show you the stacks of drugs. Here's what we got. Here's what we did. Okay, here's a question. The Pentagon, we know, kicked all the journalists out, right? The Pentagon is now filled with Trump enthusiasts, Trump apologists. And despite that, we've had extraordinary reporting from what is going on there, what happened on that boat, from the Washington Post, from the New York Times, from the Wall Street Journal. What does that tell you about, A, the power of good journalism, and B, how much people on the inside want the truth to come out?
Yeah, these guys remember, Hegseth brought all the generals back. Everyone, all of them, from where they were, from foreign places, near and wide. They brought them all back to lecture them about facial hair. So he's already, has not ingratiated himself in any way. And he's said a lot of really negative things about our armed forces to them in this, as he's been criticizing woke, he's also really been criticizing them in really disrespectful ways. So there's certainly a lot of negativity. And by the way, this was what undid Trump 1.0 was the leakers, right? Mm-hmm. And, the people who just wanted their stories out there. But I do think it's also worth remembering that, like, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, there's been a lot of Washington Post drama, but they still have, I don't have to tell you, and the New York Times really have good reporting. And they're still really doing amazing reporting. And I think it's worth remembering that, especially in a moment like this. We wouldn't know any of these stories if there weren't places that could vet these stories, report these stories, have lawyers for these stories.
But what does it tell you about Pete Hegseth and the leadership at the Pentagon that despite his best efforts, these stories are coming out? In Trump 1.0, he was surrounded by people who wanted the stories out. Right. Trump 2.0, this White House is not leaky. The Pentagon, a different story.
Yeah, it's important to remember that these are people who have served in the military and probably
their whole lives.
Their whole lives, exactly. They've committed their lives to the service that they are currently performing. And they understand the context in which that service is now occurring, right? They understand what's happening in the White House. They understand what's happening at the Secretary of Defense's office. They understand all of these things. And here's the other thing they understand. They understand that they can go to the Post and to the Times and the Wall Street Journal and that they will be protected. What are they going to do? Go down the hall to Laura Loomer and say, hey, Laura, I've got a big hot scoop for you. You're going to protect me on this? Like, there's no one in the building even who's going to give them that, who could do that. And so they know they have these connections. They understand what's at stake for the institution. And so what they're doing is they're going, hey, this is what we're concerned about, and giving it to real reporters who do real reporting.
And it is showing how overrated access to the briefing room is.
Yes.
I mean, like, Matt Gaetz is sitting there, like, asking questions.
As Matt Gaetz is sitting there, these news outlets are publishing hugely important stories without having a seat in the room.